Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen. Nothing like a Football Friday here on Birds 365. J Mac, how you doing on this Friday morning, brother?
We're getting closer to having real Football Friday, so that's a positive. And we're grinding through the dog days of summer. We're getting closer every day. Check it off.
Yep, we are getting closer, John. Well under 2 weeks. And 2 weeks from now, actually, we'll be talking about training camp. So it's happening quick. It's coming quick. John, I think we had a pretty good offseason. You know, I was saying to you off the air the other day, and I'm sure everybody else realizes this too as a fan base, but the off seasons are a lot different, John, when you reach the pinnacle. They're a lot different when you get to the mountaintop, and especially for a fan where you think, hey, what can we criticize, right? The team won it all. So the offseason was a lot different this year as compared to last year, which was my first offseason last year. So much different, but we're almost through it. And I thought it was still great nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot different. And Nick Sirianni's talked about this a bunch of times over the years because this has been a good team a lot, and they've won a lot of games. And there's different things when everybody talks about adversity, and it's going to happen to every NFL team, even the best teams in every season. But it's a little bit different to handle that. Like everybody expects to handle that. So you're working, all right, we got to handle it. We got to move forward the best way possible. Well, he also talks about, and he's talking about it a lot more, and he's going to talk about it a lot more this season, and that's handling success, which is different, and sometimes just as difficult. He uses the perfume analogy a few times, where enjoy it, smell it, but it's poison if you drink it.
Right.
So
it's actually a great analogy.
So, everybody's blowing smoke up your what and telling you how great you are. It's like one of those things where it's a good problem to have. You mentioned when I bring that up. Well, the word problem still is in there. It's similar to that. You have to handle success. And right now, everybody is over the moon about this team. And that is something different that they have to handle.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Coming off the mountaintop, it's a lot different. Last year, the playoff slogan was, let's hunt. Now we're getting hunted. How do we defend them off? I don't know what the playoff slogan will be this year, but it has changed quickly. The Eagles obviously were Super Bowl champions last year. We'll see what they end up doing this year. We got plenty of great things to talk about today. I want to welcome and thank everybody for being here this morning on a Football Friday. There's nothing like a Football Friday. It's just that feeling. It feels good. Brandon Howard, what's up, brother? Ethan, what's going on? Kyle's in here. Shady Westbrook. Tony, what's up, Tony? Real Zeal. Appreciate everybody for being in here. Daz, Sunblack, Izzy, Kyle, Mike, appreciate all you guys. Jeff Martin, what's up, guys? Appreciate each and every one of you. And if you're listening after the fact, please hit that like button for us. Drop your comments down below. We appreciate all of you guys for checking in with us all through the off season. Johnny Mac, we're on the top 25 list, and we've had a couple surprises this week. All right, yesterday, Jordan Mailata landed. Here, I'm thinking Jordan Mailata is a shoo-in for a top 5 player. He lands at 6. Cooper DeJean comes in at 7 above Landon and Devontae. That was a little bit of a surprise for me. And Quinion comes in at 10 above Zach Bond at number 11. So a little bit of a to each his own top 10 here, where I would probably have went a different direction. I know it's kind of a clumped list. So you and Ed, I like the system you did though. So, but we will see who comes in now, John, at number 5, and I got a feeling we're going to have a lengthy discussion today on the number 5 player. The floor is yours, J-Mac. Let's keep rolling down the list. Number 5 on the Philadelphia Eagles is who?
Jalen Hurts, quarterback 1. So, we know what this is going to be, and some people are going to say, that's insane. He should be number 1, and some people are going to say he shouldn't be that high. again, I try to explain the definition of the list. Not most important. That's Jalen Hurts. He's the quarterback. Who does their job the best? And I think if you look at the names that haven't come up, and there's only 4 of them, and everybody can figure that out.
Right.
You really want to argue that he does his job better than they do their jobs? Because that's a difficult argument. So
yeah, I don't think I would make that argument. I think even some of the biggest Jalen Hurts fans wouldn't make that argument. I mean, you're talking about.
I think a bunch of people are logical and will understand that, but I think there's a bunch of people who are illogical and do not understand that. So, and that's why you have all this. We talked about it on Wednesday with Mike Gill, this perception of disrespect, which I don't see. In fact, I think it's the exact opposite. I think people around the league have tremendous respect for Jalen Hurts, but this is the best roster in the NFL when it comes to, again, I go 17 deep of tier 1 players. And I think when you look at, you can argue some teams have better depth and things like that. But as far as tier 1 players, nobody's deeper than that. And they were probably deeper last year. Not probably, definitely. Nobody's deeper than that. And we can do it in alphabetical order because I don't want to give it away. But the 4 names left are Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Jalen Carter, Lane Johnson.
I don't think there's any insult to Jalen Hurts being behind those guys, man.
Well, there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. But
I really think people are going to agree. I mean, Yoss says Hurts is a great player on a team full of great players. I think that's really what's going on here. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. Let's see, 20. Ed had him at number 5 on his list. I had him at number 8 on my list.
Well, can I guess the other 3 you had above him? You had Mailata above him?
Yes.
You had Landon above him?
Yes.
One more, and you had Zach Bond above him.
Correct.
Boom.
Well done. Well done.
Boom.
Correct. And I don't think that's an insult by any stretch.
John, I don't either. Those are 3 very good players. I just named those 3 players.
Yeah.
So Jalen, boy, Ed really bolstered up some of these guys though at the tail end of this list. Eddie threw a wrench in some of your picks there, Johnny Mack, and kind of messed it all up.
I mean, that's what
right. That's getting 2 opinions. That's what it does.
Exactly. And it's hard to take the impact of the position out of it for a lot of people. We talked to some other people on the list that we had somewhat, there's no huge disagreements, but somewhat dealt with projection, really with Cooper and Quignon, more than say Landon Dickerson, who's done it now for really 3.5 consecutive seasons. Zach Bond, first team All-Pro, but I did talk to Ed via text because he was out in California, but, and I told him I ripped him about how low he had Zach Bond. And he said, and when we get him on next week, hopefully he'll say, he gives Fangio a lot of credit for that. And I get that, Zach Bond did nothing in New Orleans, basically. And all of a sudden he shows up here and Vic uses him correctly and he turns into an All-Pro. But I don't think you can play like Zach Bond because you're schemed up.
Like first team All-Pro, yeah. I mean, that's a different beast.
Yeah, exactly. So I love Vic Fangio. People that watch this show know that, but ultimately, you don't get to be a first team All-Pro by being schemed up. It just doesn't happen.
Maybe Pro Bowl, I could buy that. But
Oh
first team
yeah,
all
well,
pro,
Pro
yeah,
Bowls. Yeah, I don't
that's what I
even care
mean.
about Pro. Yeah,
Maybe Pro Bowl I could buy it, but first team all pro that's a different beast. And we had two of them last year, so Zach
yeah,
Baum was one of them.
and he didn't make the top 10.
Yeah, that's crazy. Zach Baum outside the top 10. That's the one. All the other ones from Ed I can live with. I mean, I might not agree fully. I can live with them. Vaughn falling that far is crazy to me, but I get it. I understand where he's coming from to some extent. I just wouldn't agree with him.
Yeah, well, me too. That's why. But and you have two different voices, and that's the goal, to collaborate to come up with one list. And there's a lot of good players on this team. That's where I end up all the time. So for those complaining about this guy should be here, this guy should just be happy. There's a lot of good players.
Yeah, no, there is. There's no doubt about it. John, let's get into some questions on Jalen Hurts, on what we think he's coming up this year, where he is in his progression as a professional and as a top quarterback in the league. There's a couple things that I would say about Jalen coming into this year in terms of, everybody's going to get mad, but I'm going to talk about the things that I want to see Jalen do a little bit better coming up. I want to see him get the ball out a little bit quicker. I want to see him be decisive with the football like that. I think that when he does that, that's when he's at his best. And I want to see him take another step forward, which I think he did, and he showed it even at the most at the end of the year. But last year was the first year post Jason Kelce where he managed everything at the line of scrimmage. I really want to see him take control of that to another level and own the offense. He did it, I think, very well last year, but it's your first year. Now I think going into another year with that, he's going to have a really good opportunity to kind of really run the field. And if he gets the ball out quick, if he gets the team into the right plays, as Brady talked about on that clip that we reference a lot here on the show, I think the sky's the limit for Jalen Hurts. I don't know what you think about that. What your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think the sky's already pretty high. I mean, number one.
Yeah.
So I do think we're talking about a top tier quarterback in the NFL. I do put him in, behind the big four, so to speak. And then you can start discussing who's 5, who's 6, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's fair. And the things he doesn't do well, and you mentioned one of them, or at least I shouldn't say doesn't do well, but at least has room for improvement. Yeah, quicker processing, definitely one of it. Sight adjustments, definitely part of it. And that's a give and take, because you are talking about a dual threat quarterback. So
Right.
I don't necessarily want the back foot hitting the ground, the ball coming out, because you're limiting.
You don't want him to be Jared Goff or somebody like
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
So that's a give and take. And you hear these conversations in every city. Baltimore with Lamar, Washington, they'll have it with Jaden Daniels in DC. Buffalo with Josh Allen. I've always talked about his sort of recklessness at times. Arizona with Kyler Murray, on and on. Anybody who can extend plays, you have this conversation with. It's like, well, if you want the ball to come out quickly, you're taking away a lot of what makes them great. And I don't know if you want to do that either. So he's never going to be, and BLG and I talk about this a lot. In his really good seasons, he's near the bottom of the league and getting the ball out quickly. In his bad seasons, and you shouldn't even use that term, but his lesser seasons, and last year I would count that into it. We're only talking about 4 seasons, but he's a little bit later throwing the football. So it's a tightrope. You want it to come out a little bit, but he's always going to be at the bottom of the league when it comes to time to throw. Like we talked about Joe Burrow. Poor Joe Burrow's got to get the ball out because he's getting murdered. Right. But he's got the 4th quickest release time. Well, Jalen's always going to be bottom 5. So is Lamar.
Right. That's because of the off-script plays, his off-script playmaking ability that he has.
Exactly.
It's a tough,
Exactly.
John. That's a really tough needle to thread. I mean, when you talk about how good of a playmaker he is when plays break down, I mean, if you remember the 20, I'm sure you do, the 22 season, it's like all we talked about, how incredible he was at making plays when the play when it went off script. So how do you keep that in his arsenal while also kind of, coaching him up and pushing him to get the ball out when the plays are there? Is it, you know, when you go into a play and you want to get the ball out quick, are those specific plays you want to get it out quick? Like, how do you gauge how to thread that needle? I think it's a really hard thing, especially for a guy like Jalen, to thread because he's been able to rely so much on that playmaking ability when things break down.
Yeah, it's that's the whole trick. It's very difficult,
Right.
and you're constantly having that back and forth. So I don't focus that much on that because I think that's one of those things that's sort of a necessary evil to his game, and you have to accept it. Is so the things I look for are those sight adjustments again, which are not good. They haven't been good. One of the things I talk about all the time in this era of football is this absurd notion that people have with hot routes. I'm like, it's nobody calls a hot route. Nobody, you got to you got to have more hot routes. I'm like, doesn't work that way. That's where you go to the line of scrimmage and you say, all right, you know, I'm going to change this. I'm going to adjust it. Maybe it's AJ Brown on a slant. You have that. You got to be on the same page, blah, blah, blah. And he hasn't been good at that. And really it if you go back to the Super Bowl, and I will pat myself on the back over that one because I said, screw it, just run go routes. And that's what they did. Which is not where you want to be consistently. Obviously, work to a high degree in the biggest
Yep.
game, but you can't do that over a full season. So he's got to get better at that. And
Well,
then
do you think because last year was the first year post Kelsey that there's a lot of I would look at that and say there's a lot of room for improvement.
oh,
Last
there
year,
is.
obviously, I mean, he
There's
had the Hall of Fame center, and as awesome as Kelsey was, there was some downsides from the quarterback's perspective to what Kelsey did at the line of scrimmage. You talk about the hot routes and some of those things. Like maybe now with another year under the belt, that's kind of what I was referencing when I said a couple things I wanted to see him improve at. Is maybe some of those things come into it. Agree or no?
Well, yeah, you should, and that's just the nature of getting older and more experience. I mean,
Right.
you should get better at that stuff every year, um, and as you become more comfortable. So, yeah, there's tons of that's where probably there's most room for improvement in Jalen's game. And then the other aspect that is sort of modern football in general. You don't see a lot of what they call throwing receivers open, anticipatory throws, um, and that's generally the way college is played now. So, you know, and the good news there is AJ and Devontae are usually open. Um, so, if you have to throw to open receivers, well, it's good that they have guys that are going to get open.
And even if they're not open, and AJ Brown's a guy, if he's not double covered, he's
No,
always
well, yeah,
open.
50-50, but I'm
Yeah,
not really
right.
talking about that. Like, you'll see some of the you mentioned Jared Goff, some of those type throws that
Yeah, right.
the timing throws, the anticipatory throws, but those guys are few and far between now. You don't see that a lot, and you're aging out. Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, you're
Right.
aging out of that, and all the new guys are like, well, they're playing, they grow up in a system where there isn't a lot of those timing routes. And so it's kind of natural that you don't see it as much.
Yeah. And who do you think would be the quarterbacks that are like that now? I think Goff comes to mind. Obviously, Burrow. maybe a little bit comes to mind because he's a pocket guy. Maybe a Baker
Yeah,
Mayfield comes to mind.
Goff, as I mentioned, well, Derek Carr just retired, but Kirk Cousins, got benched because he's getting older. But those are the guys. You throw some Herbert in there, I'd say.
The league is changing, John. A lot of dual threat quarterbacks, man. It's really amazing.
Sam, which everyone loves, Sam does it pretty well. Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy does it really well. I would say, he might be, besides Joe, he might be the best at that particular part of it.
Yep. No doubt. John, what do you think? I know you said that you think that this was one of his lesser seasons, and I do think the context is important in that his lesser seasons are still pretty good. So that's the good news, is that the lows are not as low as they could be. But do you think this is a bounce back season for him in terms of the context of which you talked about that? Or do you think this is kind of the player he is when you're in a run heavy offense with less RPOs and some of those things?
Well, if they play offense like they played last year, this is probably the player he's going to be. But long term, that's you're going to see him go back to previous. It might not happen this year, but it might not happen when Saquon's at the height of his game, but eventually it'll get back to that. Unless you find another top tier running back like that, which I doubt moving forward. So at some point it's going to come back to it, but and then it becomes more difficult for the quarterback. He was 23rd in passer rating from PFF's perspective. So if you think about 32 starters, he's bottom 10 in passing efficiency. That has to improve. But part of the reason why is because they didn't throw it a lot. And if you don't throw it a lot, it's tough to get into a rhythm. So, and that's just objectively, he didn't have one of his personal best seasons. But part of that was because of the offense that they were running, no doubt about it. So depends how you look at it, but you don't want your quarterback to be 23rd in passing efficiency, essentially. You don't want your quarterback to be bottom 10, especially when everybody considers them to be top 5 in Philadelphia.
Right.
Well, you don't want him to be bottom 10 in passing the ball and being elevated by his, running abilities and things like that.
Yeah. John, did you see a significant difference from week 1 last year to the Super Bowl in his handling of the offense at the line of scrimmage?
Well, I mean, it's tough to, week 1, he didn't play well. That was just an ugly game. A lot of turnovers. Probably could have had more turnovers. And that played into the bye week, the early turnovers in the season. Played into the scale back at the week 5 bye, which I thought was unfair. I said pretty consistently. But I mean, obviously through the season he progressed and he played better, so it looked better. That was probably his worst game of the year. I mean, week 1. He was, a lot of turnover worthy throws in that game, as they call them. Which is ironic, coming off the training camp, the much hyped training camp where he didn't throw an interception. and then he came out really poorly. But
I'm kind of hoping he has a lot of interceptions in training camp this year. No, I mean, like, literally, like, go out and get, like, I think that's what happened, is that he protected the ball so much in training camp, whether right or wrong. And when you get to the fast paced game, it looks a little different. Defenses look a little different. They come at you different, and I want to see him kind of get settled into that, because I think once he's settled in, it worked a lot better. I'd like him to get over that hump in training camp. Stop worrying about what Elliot Shore Parks tweets out in terms of camp stats,
Well, I will say, sorry, I'm thirsty this morning, but I will say that the fact that he was trying to protect the ball in practice is silly. I hope that's not the case. But, that stuff seeps into the, I always joke, to Elliot's credit, like now I go on Twitter and I see Cleveland reporters tweeting out stats from practice. So he's created sort of this groundswell around the NFL. And for all the talk of, we compartmentalize, we don't pay attention to that stuff. They pay attention to that stuff. And then it becomes almost a self-fulfilling prophecy of, why are you not trying to test things in practice? That's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So I would agree with you. I think no interceptions in training camp is a bad stat. I really believe that. Because training camp is where you're supposed to test things. Can I get away with this throw? Can I get away with this throw against this coverage? How far can I push it? That's what practice is for. With getting better and getting, 1% better, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I'm with you. That was not a positive statistic. People took it as one. It was not.
Well, I think it was proven that it wasn't positive by the way the first 4 games went. Remember, however, and guys, it's funny, fans listening might jump on us about this, but I remember what all the comments said after week 4 when we were in the bye week. Everybody was sounding a little bit of an alarm on Jalen Hurts. There were 7 turnovers in the first 4 games. They were 2-2. It didn't look pretty, and everybody had question marks. So I think it's fair to say that he struggled with the turnovers early, and that's part of why they switched the type of offense they played. Now, with that, John, given how much success the quarterback had in 22 and 23 in terms of off script, has the team become too system dependent for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts? Do you worry that the margin for error has been lowered, which it has, and we've talked about that, even though they still won, and now you've kind of put the playmaking off script quarterback in a system where he doesn't have as much opportunity to make plays off script? Do you think that's a concern or not at this point?
Well, to me, it's a concern, but it's tough to argue that when you win as much as they won. But you just brought up the whole point of it. To me, it's increasing. The whole point of it is to increase your margin of error. Now, they decreased their margin of error, and they still won the Super Bowl. So, is that really a good decision? Well, I think 99.9% of the people would say that was a good decision. And, I always talk about people much smarter than me talking about things like problem solving and things like, living productive lives and those types of people that, leaders and Nick Sirianni's approach and all that kind of stuff. But, far beyond football. And anybody can Google this today, decision-making, problem solving, however you want to describe it, A good decision doesn't necessarily guarantee a good result, and vice versa. a bad decision doesn't necessarily guarantee a bad result.
And could you also say a good result doesn't prove it was a good decision?
No, and that's the difficult because it's not tangible.
Right.
It's not tangible.
That's where it gets hard. That's where it gets tougher.
The idea for all these people who are study this and much smarter than me say, if you stack good decisions, you're more likely to get good outcomes over the long haul. Whereas if you continually make bad decisions, well, one time it might work out, but the more you do it, it's not going to work out. That's how I kind of feel with this run heavy approach. Now, I may be completely wrong because they're the ones zigging when everybody else is zagging. And I brought up this Army Navy sort of comparison a couple times. Nobody else plays like the Eagles offensively. You can argue Baltimore a little bit. Nobody else plays like the Eagles. So the rest of the league is trying to stop the rest of the league. And you say, well, we got to play the Eagles, but we really can't spend a lot of time worrying about, somebody's going to run the football that much, because then we got to go back next week and play 4 straight games against teams that are going to pass it heavily. So the Eagles might be ahead of the curve. And I wouldn't even say might be. They are ahead of the curve right now. And my best description of that, which I brought up a number of times, is Eagles defense versus Eagles offense. Well, objectively, the Eagles defense was better than the offense last season. By every measure. And again, this is an intangible, but I truly believe the Eagles defense, if they had to play against the Eagles offense, would get bulldozed.
Yeah.
Because of the way the Eagles played. So
could that be proof then, John? If they were the best defense in football, which they were, and they couldn't have stopped the Eagles offense, could that prove that the zig was actually the right move? Because the best of the best in the NFL wouldn't have been able to stop this offense based on the way the new players are, the size of the new players, the way that teams play now. Could that be proof that the zig was the right move, even if traditionally you would think it lowered your margin for error in the modern game?
Well, it was proven to be the right move in the short term.
I'm not talking about the result, though. I'm trying to leave that out of it based on what you said. I'm trying to put into the context of, if the margin for error goes down when you're a running team, but the best defense is still not built to stop that, then couldn't that be now flipped and improved your margin for error? I mean, if the best defense in football can't stop you, who can stop you?
Well, I would say no. And proof of that, by the way, is 2 different things. The Eagles keep trying to evolve and get better with the passing game. So they know it, that long term, this is not sustainable. And the second part is, again, all the things that have to go right, which I've said a number of times. You got to play from the lead. You have to have the number 1 defense or a top 5 defense. You have to have all these complementary aspects to make sure that you're not behind in the fourth quarter, where everything is all kilter. And then if you don't have all the other stuff accentuating your philosophy on offense, all of a sudden your philosophy on offense, still the same great players, is derailed by the fact that you're going to have to throw the ball anyway to get back in the game. And the Eagles are well aware of this.
Right.
So if you can guarantee they're going to have the number one defense.
Right. So the
If
complementary nature of last year can't be left out of the equation.
Yeah. If you can guarantee Saquon Barkley is going to be healthy for 21 games, yeah, it's probably a good way to play. But is that sustainable? I wouldn't, certainly not long term, it's not sustainable. Can you get another year out of it? Maybe.
Right. Taking advantage of kind of where they are right now and what the league looks like right now. We'll see how it all progresses. I think overall, the team is in a great spot. John, a couple more questions I do have on Jalen Hurts. I love talking about Jalen Hurts. I think it's all good. Everybody, I know some people take it personal or whatever, or they don't want their quarterback. I'm not bashing him. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. He's obviously a great player. Just a good conversation here, though, in July as we get ready for training camp. Any of these sack statistics, John, concern you with Jalen Hurts? He's toward the top of the league in the sacks. No concern there?
No, that's just off schedule. That's right. All of them. Yeah,
it's one of the things you give and take, right? You live with it because of the type of player he is.
Yeah. Caleb Williams. Now, you don't want to be Caleb Williams.
Yeah, right.
But there's a good give and take, but he's always going to be at the higher end. And that's you understand that. Everybody understands that in the building. I mean, yeah, you can, any quarterback in the NFL can not take sacks if they really want to. Just get the ball out. You might not be effective, but again, and at their height, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, best example, you're not sacking those guys. They're playing at a high level, but it can be just as simple for a poor quarterback to get the ball out if he really wants to. But anytime you have a dual threat quarterback, your sack numbers are going to be elevated. It's just part of it. I don't worry about that at all.
That's good. That's good, because I do think some people look at that and have a little bit of an issue with it. But I agree. I hear what you're saying. John, how much faith do you have in Kevin Patullo to build a system around what Hurts does best, especially when that's still – I don't know if you could say it's undefined, but I think it's a little bit more up in the air. There's a little bit more gray area than most quarterbacks after 4 coordinators in 5 seasons. How much confidence you have in Patullo?
Yeah, I like Kevin a lot. I'm one who, similar to, I don't have many questions about Kevin. He's already built it. He's already done it. People just don't realize it.
Right.
He's been a part of it for a long time now. So to me, and people can talk themselves into different things, but the offenses look very familiar throughout all these incarnations because they've all built the offense around Jalen Hurts. That's why it looks familiar. That's why people go, oh, that's Nick Sirianni when things are going bad. Oh, now he's letting Kellen Moore do things when things are going good. And last year was a little bit different from a run-pass perspective because of the presence of Saquon. But if you look at the passing game, very familiar, very similar. Nick, Shane, Brian, Kellen, very familiar. And it will be again this year.
I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like this year with Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts taking another step forward this year, hopefully. So I think he's going to have a big year this year, John. I really do. I think this is a year where, because of what happened with the running game, I think defenses are going to come in and try and take it away. And Jalen is going to have the opportunity to win some games or to put the team ahead or to make some plays with him again, and I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to have an MVP level season this year. Doesn't sound like you're ready to say that. Obviously, I know that's not your ball game to predict stuff like that, but I feel like that's what's coming here for Jalen. I think a really big season is coming for him. It's kind of been a couple years in the making.
Well, I'm kind of in between, because they when he was the runner up in 2022, again, it was Miles Sanders. It wasn't Saquon Barkley, and Miles had a great year, but as long as Saquon's here, I don't think he's going to have an opportunity to play at an MVP level. It's just not going to be there. Which is fine. I don't have an issue with that. But yeah, to get at that level, you got to throw the ball and you got to put up numbers. And it's not going to be the case, comparatively speaking, to some of the other guys. So, but that people shouldn't be worried about that from my perspective. I mean, who cares? If you're winning games, who cares if you have an MVP quarterback?
Well, I think because I mean, again, and you're a guy that loves to talk about the margin of error, and I understand why. If your quarterback is clicking on all cylinders in the passing game, doesn't that massively improve that margin for error when you are a running team? Like Spags took away Saquon, or at least the best he could. I think Saquon had 55 yards in the Super Bowl, somewhere around that range. And Jalen was able to beat him. Now, they were all go routes and things that you said, and I get that, and maybe there's evolution from that. But if Jalen takes that next step forward, now you come in and what do you do to stop this team? If I take away AJ and Devontae, they got Saquon and Dallas Goedert. If I take away Saquon and Goddard, they have AJ and Devontae. So if Hurts takes that step, which I think he's going to, and I think in a way he's already kind of taken that step because he did it last year when necessary. But if he does that, I don't see how a team could stop this Eagles offense. I just don't. They got
we've been talking about that for years. Who do you stop? Who pick your point? Now it's just elevated with Saquon, but pick your poison, and that's what happened in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were able to take advantage of it. Now, can they do that over a 17-game regular season? Well, they had a lot of bad games last year, and from a passing perspective. And, I think part of it is simply he threw the ball 361 times versus 538 the year prior.
Where do you think that number falls this year? 440?
Probably split the difference, yeah. I can't imagine it's 360. Of course, part of that is, he also played 17 games in 23 versus 15 last year, and really 14. So that explains some of it, but that's a big disparity. And I don't think it's going back to that level. He threw it 432 times in his first year as a starter. Maybe it goes back to that level.
Where was he in 22?
460.
I think between year one and year two makes the most sense. Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. But again, if Saquon plays like he did last year, that changes the ball game.
Yeah, but even if Saquon plays like he did last year, wouldn't you anticipate that defenses will stack the box and do what they can to stop it and force you to go the other way? I mean, again, Saquon was still Saquon in the Super Bowl, but Spags simply said, I'm not going to let you beat me. And Jalen made him pay. So credit to Jalen in that regard. But I'm anticipating that happens more this year because everybody knows how good Saquon is, especially with the amount of headlines and stories and Madden covers and you name it. Saquon got it. Everybody knows Saquon is there, John.
Yeah, I'm very careful not to assume that each game plan is going to do the same thing. You know, like, first of all, what Spags didn't work at all. So it might be, people might look at it and say, well, we can't do that. We can't sell out. So I'm very, and most teams will still, even after going through what they did last year with the Eagles, most teams will say, you want to run it? By all means, run it.
Right.
Vic believes that. He's like, yeah, I'll give up 5, 6. Go ahead. That's just the overriding philosophy in the NFL. So I know everybody's on that board. Well, everybody's going to try to stop Saquon. I don't think that's the case. I think still the majority of teams will go in with the sentiment of, you know what, if you want to run it, go run it, because we don't want to deal with AJ, Devontae, et cetera. I still think more teams will lean that way.
That's interesting. If you're Patullo, John, do you want Jalen taking more risk in 2025, even if it means a few more turnovers here and there, just to try and, get more out of that passing attack?
Yes. Last year he was, and you saw it at times where he, after some of those frustrating, poor passing games, there were a couple little hints that Jalen dropped about doing what he's told to do. Little things like that. I think they overreacted to the first 4 games. I've said that.
Yeah, especially the context of who missed those. AJ Brown missed 3 out of 4 games.
Yeah.
Like, if Jamar Chase missed 3 out of 4 games and Joe Burrow didn't have his best 4 games, do you think anybody would have shit on Joe Burrow, or they would have said, well, he needs to get Jamar Chase back? That's what I did. That's the one thing. And even I was a problem with this too sometimes, where I didn't factor all that in. They missed, I think, Devontae for 2 of those games. They missed AJ for 3 of those games. And Lane Johnson was even out for 1 of those games. Like, yeah, Jalen didn't have his best games. Hello.
Well, and I thought it was unfair. And I still think it was unfair to Jalen. But they won. So it's hard to argue. But yeah, I don't think they can do that again next year. I don't think they can. So I think the passing efficiency has to be better.
That's where I wonder, John, right there, where I use that word circumstantial, where I think that comes into play, because it was unfair to Jalen, yes. But do you think when they made that decision, they did it with the idea that that was going to be their new offensive identity, or did they do it as a spark plug for when they were a little bit, struggling on the offensive side of the ball? It's like, I liken it to pulling a goalie in hockey or whatever sport you like, whatever you would liken it to. I liken it to pulling a goalie in hockey, where you might not want the backup goalie to become the starting goalie, but for right now, we need a spark. Right now, we need a spark on the offense. Let's get the ball to Saquon Barkley 30 times, And then because it worked so well, they never really had to go back the other way. It's like the backup goalie never gave up a goal. He couldn't take him out, No,
I think that's exactly it. I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, they just did it to stop the turnovers. And, the assumption was, let's right the ship. And then, down the road, it'll get back to normal. And they kept winning and winning and winning. And they kept riding it. So, yeah, I don't think it was a concerted effort that we're going to be this for the rest of the season. It just worked out that way.
Right. No doubt about it. John, last question here on Jalen Hurts. Great segment on the QB1. Always good to talk about the quarterback here in the offseason. And John's right. We haven't had that many convos about Jalen Hurts, but it is good to talk about him here. John, what does Jalen have to do for you, talking about Johnny Mac? What does he have to do to reach that top-tier caliber quarterback in your eyes? Or can he not? I don't know. I know you've talked about that you don't think he's in the category of the Burrow, the Allen, and the Lamars of the world. I happen to think he is. It just looks a lot different. But what does he have to do for you, if anything?
No, you don't have to do anything for me, but
well, I'm just saying to change your opinion. He doesn't have to, obviously, but
it would be very difficult for him to get into that top four. Yeah, I don't, it's like, and I say that with basically, it's very difficult for anybody to get in that top four, and we're talking about the immediacy of it right now. Is Patrick Mahomes descending? Perhaps. We'll see. But some of the other quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels, who I love as a player, well, it's going to be tough for him to get in the top four. Caleb Williams, he's got all the talent in the world. I can't imagine him ever getting into that.
But I think, I feel like, and I don't want to speak for you, so I feel like you think that Jaden is closer to those top four than you do Jalen.
Well, I think from a traits perspective, yes. But not necessarily from a performance perspective so far. It's only 1 year. And we have to see, CJ Stroud, same thing. It's like, well, he was so good as a rookie, and then he came back to the pack, still a very good player. So you have these ups and downs, but, no, I don't think he's at the level of those top four. Now, they'll age out at some point, like everybody does. But this year, no. But I'd say that about every other quarterback, too. So I don't think it's disrespectful.
Yeah, it's not as much about Jalen. You're saying it's more about how good those other guys are?
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine. All right, let's get to some super chats. Great segment on Jalen Hurts. Gotta love talking about QB1. All right, gotta love talking about QB1. Appreciate everybody being here right now. Steve, what's up, Steve? Dan, what's going on? Dan, Mike, Keese, what's up, Keese? Brandon Lewis is in here. Hip Hop News Uncensored. Kakoa, John, this is one of my favorite names in the chat. Kakoa Kaiawawa. I just love that name. I mean, are you in Hawaii, Kakoa? You gotta be. Josh Prout's in here. What's up, everybody? I appreciate all of you guys. Don't forget to hit that like button for us. We appreciate you. Let's get to some super chats right now. Brandon Howard ups the membership. Brandon, thank you, man. That's a legend member. B-How, we missed you, brother. I know you're kicking the feet up. Listen, you're a Super Bowl champ, B-How, all right? The team's Super Bowl champ. So I know you took a little bit of a breather in the offseason. Good to see you back in the mix a little bit. Rashid Mixon checks in. What's up, Rashid? He says, I didn't look at it like that after the first 4 games, Z. I thought he needed to fix the fumbles, but we didn't have wide receiver 1, 2 through 4, and we were a 26 drop. We were a 26 drop from 3-1. Okay, Saquon dropped from 3-1. That's fair, Rashid. That's fair. Maybe a little hindsight 2020 from me.
Well, I thought it was unfair too, but it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the Eagles thought. And they were also, yes, Saquon, they were a drop away from 3-1. They were also a miracle in New Orleans away from 1-3. So, with that Keystone Cop Dallas Goedert play where they just ran into each other, the Saints. But so yeah, I know the drop is what it is, but and I'm with you. I think that part of the problems with the offense were AJ was missing in the Tampa game specifically, which they overreacted to. You don't have AJ, Devontae, or Lane. So why are you overreacting to that? They're the ones who overreacted. I've said consistently, I thought they were unfair to Jalen by doing that, but they won. So,
right. Winning cures all, John, as we talk about a lot. Rashid, thank you for the super chat, brother. We appreciate you, brother. Yeah, Philly Lock 22 gives a 99 center. Philly Lock, I'm not sure if you meant to put a. Oh, I see you have another one. Thank you for the super chat, my man. I appreciate it. I'll get your other one here right now. He says Keely and Sydney are dark horses this year. That's bold. Dark horse in what way?
Well, I don't think I mean, I assume playing well. I think, and if that's the case, I think Kaylee's got a better opportunity than Sydney because I think Kaylee's going to win the job. I don't know if Sydney's going to win the job. So, but yeah, Kaylee's got a lot of upside. There's going to be some growing pains though, so people should be prepared for that.
Yeah, we'll see how it all shakes out with them. Philly Lock, thank you, brother. One more super chat here. Philly Don, member for 10 months. Philly Don, what's up, brother? Thank you, my man. I appreciate it. Love that little profile picture you got working there, too. A little eagle with an eagle hat on. He says, Big Z, J-Mac, what's up, Xander? Love the new ride. Thank you, my friend. Good luck with it. I think we will see Jalen back to his MVP form this season. Philly Don, I'm feeling that, too. We will see what happens.
Well, I think he's going to play better. Again, I'm not really concerned about individual awards. I never am. But I don't think he will be in the conversation to be MVP because they're a run first team and they will continue to be a run first team. So you need to play a certain way to be in that conversation. And I just don't think they're going to play that way.
We'll see what ends up happening. Philly Don, thanks for being a member for 10 months. Thanks to all of you guys who are members on the channel, especially all through the summer. It's much appreciated. Definitely helps keep us on the air all through the summer, as we promised you guys we would be here all summer. And here we are now, just 2 weeks from training camp. For those who stuck it out with us, we appreciate you. For those who are coming back on board, it's great to see you back here. And for those who have friends who are still not back on board yet, send the text, send the link, get them back in here. It's time to talk Eagles football. I'm done with the Phillies. I'm done with the Sixers. I'm done. It's Eagle season, everybody. All right. Now we'll still be following the Phillies because they maybe have a chance. But You guys know when the Eagles start. I mean, come on. Nobody holds a candle to the Birds. So I'm excited for the season to get back here. Good to see everybody in here today. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button. We'll be right back in 3 minutes on Birds 365.